Hello, Garland Nixon here, and there's a good bit going on. The Ukrainian military is getting slammed to pieces and encircled, and all kinds of stuff like that. And meanwhile, the Western hand of freedom for Syria has turned into surprise massacres. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here. Yeah, a little bit of light shining in over there. There we go. That makes things a little bit better. Now we're cooking with gas. Okay. Did somebody say, did Garland say Trump also out of cards? Well, I mean, however you want to look at it like that. We're using metaphors here. So however the metaphor works for you, right? Out of cards, house of cards, few cards to play. It all amounts to the same thing. We're using a metaphor to say this. The Trump administration came into a situation where Joe Biden and his crew of lunatics had consummated, shall we say, many, many years of U.S. foreign policy. Excuse me. U.S. foreign policy was pretty clear. Excuse me for, sounded like an alcoholic, but I just finished eating. At any rate, many, many years of U.S. foreign policy. And the U.S., it was the be careful what you pray for. You might just get it. You've heard all the metaphors. The little chihuahua is barking after a tractor trailer and chases it, and it finally catches the tractor trailer. And then what do you do then, right? And it was the old, U.S. the Wolfowitz doctrine. That's what I was looking for. In 2001, Paul Wolfowitz wrote something which he actually wrote in a very assertive and fascist kind of way, and then rewrote it and backed off a little bit. The Wolfowitz doctrine was simply this: the unipolar world. The United States would be the most powerful country in the world for all eternity, forever. Kind of like the Nazis' 1,000-year reign, right? He kind of declared the Fourth Reich. We're going to be powerful forever and ever and ever. Nobody can be allowed to rise and challenge us, right? Particularly on the Eurasian continent. It goes back to some old geopolitical strategists who have said for many years, whoever controls that Eurasian landmass from Russia to China, right? From Europe, between Europe and China, which just happens to be Russia, whoever controls that rules the world. Well, that happens to be Russia. And Russia's always had an issue with other people saying whoever controls our country rules the world, because they're like, but it's our country, we're Russians, and we don't even want to rule the world, but you ain't getting it. And you're going to have to fight for it. So the bottom line is, after many, many years of, talking about how they would, keep Russia down, and if Russia should begin to arise, they'd have to mush them back down. They saw Russia rising, so they're like, okay, we're going to take it once and for all. And it was, we're going to put a puppet government in Russia. This was the U.S.'s plan, the West plan, U.S. city of / Britain, city of London. One of two things. We'll either put a puppet government in Russia and rob Russia blind. That's what they did during the 1990s. Or if that doesn't work, we'll just attack them, defeat them, and put another puppet government in, or just divvy it up and take different parts of it, right? It amounted to the Russian people getting either slaughtered or, put into eternal servitude. Again, Russians weren't buying that plan. They were never going to buy the plan. And they had a lot of cards to play, as Trump says. So here we come. The Biden administration, they're going to finish this thing off once and for all. They're going to, okay, we're going into Russia, and now we're going to oust Putin, put their plan. They're going to oust Putin, put their puppet in, and boom, we're going to take everything, right? Well, as has happened on numerous occasions before, the attacking Russia part worked. The ousting Russia, the Russian government, and taking all their resources part, not so much. And the Russians, of course, as they say, the enemy gets a vote. The Russians got a vote towards that plan, and the Russians' vote was, it ain't going to happen. And it ain't happening. And now the U.S. is in that situation. The U.S. and Russia is in this, the U.S. and Europe is in this situation. They're facing a massive defeat. They went to Russia's border. They loaded up Ukraine as a weapon against Russia. They used all of their sanctions, 25, 26,000 sanctions, something like that against Russia. They sanctioned everything they could against Russia. So they went full spectrum dominant. They went full diplomatic, that trying to lean on other countries, trying to everything they could to isolate Russia diplomatically, isolate Russia economically, and attack Russia militarily and destabilize Russia. And it all backfired. Russia became more stable. The US empire is in decline. And what we're finding is everything they do to stop the decline only makes it faster. Every action is taken to stop the decline only makes the decline faster. So here we are. Where are we today? Massive defeat is imminent. It's obvious. It's clear. They went to Russia and they lost. They lost. And now, how do you spin the loss? How do you deal with the loss? Well, we have two different ways to things going on. We've got the Europeans who are just going to stick their head in the sand. No, we're not losing. We didn't lose. We got to keep fighting. No, I'm not going to accept it. So they have, put everything on the line. They can't face reality. They're just going to stick their head in the sand and say, if we only keep fighting, something will happen. I don't know what. Anything, who knows? Maybe it will, a prayer or anything, but we just can't come out and say we faced a massive defeat. We threw all of NATO, everything we could, every resource we had at Russia, and Russia kicked our ass. That's just the reality of it. You lost. Sometimes, you know what I mean? You're on the street, you get in a fight, somebody kicks your ass, you go home. You nurse the wounds and get up another day. But they couldn't do that because they bet everything and they didn't have a second option. Well, sadly for the Europeans, happily for the rest of us on the planet, the U.S. changed administrations, and now Trump's plan is to spin it, right? It's not a loss, in fact, but Trump and these people are actually saying it's a proxy war. They're doing whatever they can, playing any card they can to get out of it. Some of the cards that Trump has played so far is, I'm the honest guy. Look, it was a proxy war. Look, Russia's definitely winning. Ukraine's going to get blasted. We're trying to save Ukraine. And that was the play the honest card. And he did. In a lot of ways, you got to say this. And that's a card you can play. You know what I mean? If you're playing games, a card you can play is, I'm just going to come clean. Some guy gets caught by his girlfriend, looking at another girl. I don't know, whatever. There's a lot of things she can say. Hey, why were you looking at that girl in the miniskirt? He can say, I wasn't looking at her. Maybe he was. I mean, he's a human being. He saw a girl in the miniskirt and turned into, it didn't really mean anything, but he got caught looking. He can say, I wasn't looking at her. Look right behind her. There's a Caterpillar D9 bulldozer. I love looking at bulldozers. Have that marquee behind her. There's a clock. I was looking at the clock. He can lie his way out of it. Or he can just say, I'm sorry. I guess I was wrong. I looked at her. I shouldn't have done it. Please forgive me. He can play the honest card. I am a mortal man and I have sinned. Right? You can try to play the emotional card, right? Oh, baby, I love you. I messed up. I don't want to lose you, right? So there's a number of cards. He can play the emotional card. He can play the honest card. You got me. I screwed up. I'm only human. It will never happen again. Whatever. I don't want anybody but you. He can do anything. He can lie, whatever, right? But there's various cards he can play. Bottom line is this: Trump played the honest card. It's a card. It's a calculation. He's partially played that, right? And he's done pretty good with that so far. Now what happens? Trump says, I'm sick and tired of Zelensky, you maggots. You disrespected me for the last time. You little green janitor suit wearing some bitch, you. That's it. I'm done. Because let's face it, he had no choice. Zelensky disrespected him in front of everybody. He had to hit him back. So Trump says, that's it. I'm pulling the plug on everything. Well, let's face it. You're the Russians. You're still at war, aren't you? You're the Russians. There's a bunch of guys goose stepping around on your border, and they must be dealt with, right? The Russians, they're not there to chat. They're not there to, have a philosophical discussion. The guys on their border are literally goose stepping, Sieg Heil screaming Nazis, right? Those aren't the kind of people that you sit down and have a discussion with, that you work things out intellectually. When you see guys with swastikas tattooed all over them, there's ain't a whole lot of ways to deal with those kind of guys. And based on the Russians' history, they got a pretty good idea of what you need to do. And they're in the process of doing it. So what happens when Trump says, that's it, you're not getting any C3 ISR, you're not getting any of the command control and communications, and none of that stuff, buddy. You forget it. We're done with you. We're not giving you weapons. You disrespected us for the last time. Okay. What do you think the Russians are going to do? Pull some punches? You think the Russians are going to be, well, the Ukrainians are a little bit weaker, so we'll just maybe not bomb them? Oh, hell no. That ain't the way you do it in a war. That ain't what you do. You do it in a fight. Let me ask you this. Some guy attacks you and you're defending yourself. And the guy, I don't know, you're in the struggle, you get the guy's wrist, wow, you twist it and he's got a broken wrist. And he's like, oh, and his wrist is broken. Are you going to take the guy has attacked you, he's trying to kill you, he's trying to rob you, right? Which is effectively what the Russians are facing. And you get his wrist and you're struggling, you snap that owner, right? Wrist is broken, bone sticking through the skin. Are you going to look over there and say, well, now that you're a little weaker, I think I'll, lower the my level of attack? No, he's weak now. This guy attacked you. This guy was a madman on the street. You're walking down the street, minding your own business. He pulls out a knife, or a club or whatever. He's going to attack you and rob you. If he gets a little bit weaker, that's when you really go in on him. Now he's got an injury. Boom, his left arm's broken, the bone sticking through the skin. He's in pain. He's in real trouble. He's in shock. What do you do then? You finish him off. You hit him with a flurry of everything you got. You hit him with punches and kicks and elbows. And if you got a brick, you pick it up, you smack him in the head with. You finish this guy off. When you smell a little bit of weakness, you don't slow up. You give it everything. This guy attacked you. You don't want any trouble. I was just walking down the street, minding my business. This guy attacked me, and I was able to snap his wrist. Now he's in a world of hurt. Because I may be a little cautious. He's got both hands up. He might have a weapon in one hand. I may be a little bit cautious. I'm waiting. What am I going to do? What a move I'm going to make? Maybe I'll wait for him to make a move and I'll make a defensive move, a counter strike, whatever. I don't know. I got to see what's going on here. Maybe I've got to look and make sure there's nobody else joining him. I got to, put my back against the wall. I am on alert. Bad guy's here to get me, right? Then he gets his wrist snapped. Oh, things are going to go bad for you now that you only got one hand, which means I can attack from the side where the hand is weak. And you know what I'm going to do? That wrist is broken. What do you think I'm going to do? If I touch that, you'll be in terrible pain. Where do you think I want to strike first? Right where the pain is. You're going to try to hide that wrist. You're going to try to and fight with one. No, buddy. If I can hit that wrist, if I can do anything I can to make that wrist hurt worse, I'm going where the pain is. Because I'm trying to win the fight. I'm not trying to, this is not fair. This is not the Queensberry rules. This is a knockdown, drag out fight. And any advantage that I can get, I got to take advantage of it to its fullest, right? This is my adversary. The idea is to put him down and leave him down. The idea is to go home alive. So what do the Russians say? Ukrainians a little weak, are they? Have a little trouble with your C3ISR, huh? Ooh, don't have the satellites you used to have now. There, do you, buddy? Okay, then. In that case, let's see. Satellites would help you with what? Air defense. Your air defense is a little shoddy, isn't it? What are the Russians going to do? It's a war. They're going to do what the Ukrainians would do. When the Ukrainians have that much weakness, they're going to exploit it to the fullest degree, my friend. That is the what do I want to call it? That's the law of war, right? That's the law. I mean, that's the law of aggression. You get in a fight. If the other guy gets an advantage, if he gets you on the ground and he can stomp you on the head and drive your head into the ground, that's what he's got to do. It's a fight. There ain't no rules. One person walks away, the other person stays there. So what are the Russians doing? Any little advantage they get, they're going to exploit it to the fullest extent. So, needless to say, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but to current events, shall we say? But the Russians launched the largest drone and missile strike like so far this year, maybe one of the largest in the conflict against the Ukrainians. Knocked the hell out of them, pummeled them mercilessly. They're advancing, they're pummeling them on the battlefield, they're encircling a bunch of like 10,000 of them in the Kursk region or in the area of the Kursk region, encircled. Yeah, they're done. They're going to smush the hell out of them. Apparently they've encircled them. They've cut off their only line of retreat or supplies. That's being droned and artillery, so you can't resupply them and they can't get out. They got them encircled. Let me ask you this. What do you think the Russians are going to do to those 10,000 guys? As I said, it's war. Either those guys are going to throw in the towel, they're going to put up a white flag and say, please spare us. We'd like to go to, a prison camp and sit out the rest of this war, or be traded at some point for other prisoners, whatever, but we don't want to die. That's option A. Option B is they're going to be obliterated, every last one of them. That's the laws of war. So here, why do I say all that? Let's go to what happens with Trump. Trump's unhappy, and let me find it. All right, let's take a look at this article. There we go. Trump threatens to impose large-scale sanctions on Russia until a peace agreement with Ukraine is reached. After weeks of distancing the U.S. from Ukraine, President Donald Trump on Friday threatened to expose expanded large-scale sanctions and tariffs on Russia until it reaches a peace agreement. Based on the fact that Russia is absolutely pounding Ukraine on the battlefield right now, I am strongly considering large-scale banking sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and settlement agreement on peace is reached. To Russia and Ukraine, get to the table right now before it's too late. Thank you, Trump wrote in a post on Truth Social, right? It's interesting. Get to the table right now before it's too late. Thanks. That implies okay, now here's something interesting. While speaking to reporters in the Oval Office Friday afternoon, Trump said that U.S. was doing well with Russia and that he was finding it more difficult, frankly, to deal with Ukraine. They don't have the cards, Trump said of Kyiv. In terms of getting a final settlement, it may be easier dealing with Russia, which is surprising because they have all the problems and they're bombing the hell out of them right now. Whatever that means doesn't make a lot of sense. But what is he talking about? Who has the strengths and weaknesses? Who has the upper hand? And he's like, Kiev doesn't have any cards. Well, subsequently, that means something else. Marco Rubio recently said this is a proxy war, right? And what does that mean? If Kiev doesn't have the cards and it's a proxy war, how does that look for the U.S.'s hand? What about Trump's? I'll put it like this. We've thrown down every card we had. We threw out all the Wunderwaffens, right? We sent them M777 howitzers. That's going to change everything. M1A1 Abrams, right? Oh boy, once they get that 26, remember this? F-16s. Man, it's over for the Ruskies now. The Ukrainians are getting F-16s that were built in like 1977. Okay. The Ukrainians are getting F-16s. That's going to change everything. Oh, they're going to get HIMARS. They're going to get all the things that was all the wonder weapons. None of them made. We played hand after hand, and every single one of them, snake eyes, right? Zilcho. So now with 26,000 sanctions. Now think about what Trump has said. We've sanctioned everything we can sanction them. Thrown them off SWIFT. Thrown them off every U.S. and banking system and all. But here's the problem. Chris Rock once said about drugs, people don't sell drugs, they offer them. That like people are like, let's say they're in a country in a state where weed is illegal and a bunch of guys want weed. The weed dealer doesn't have to look for them. They're looking for the weed dealer. They're riding around. Anybody's got any weed? And they find a weed dealer. The weed dealer just happens to have the weed. He has what's called market insistence. People are searching him out to buy some weed. Let's be honest. He offers, he has the weed, doesn't even have to offer it. People will look for him. Who's got some weed? Hey, that guy. They chase him down and buy the weed from him, right? The bottom line is he's got all the cards, right? Well, let's look at Russia. They're going to win militarily. They've got oil and gas and stuff and wheat. People want that. Just like the weed dealer. He ain't got to. What do you think? Russia has to chase people down to get them their their oil and gas and wheat and food and stuff like that. They don't have to chase anybody down. People are coming to them. People need it. We're still buying stuff from them. And so is Europe. As Europe's like, we must march to war with Russia. Really? Meanwhile, what do you think we're going to do? Oh, we're going to have to buy sunflower oil and gas from them or we'll starve. But doggone it. And fertilizer. Okay, fair enough, fertilizer. But darn it, we're going to get ready to go to war with those bastards. We'll fix them. Even you need the Russians. The Russians are in a pretty good economic situation right now. Their economy's growing. They got the 4th largest economy in the world with all those sanctions. So Trump, what he did was he says, I'll sanction them if they don't stop pummeling the Ukrainians. They ain't ever going to stop pummeling the Ukrainians until there's a peace deal. That's what they do. That's their job. It's called a war. In the war, you have an enemy. And you pummel the enemy. That's just what you do. You pummel them. When somebody's texting me, I'm going to put, please text me. You got an enemy in a war. What do? You don't have mercy on your enemy. You don't chat and talk to your enemy. You close with and destroy the enemy. That's what the Russians are doing. And if your enemy's weak, then you destroy you exploit the weakness. Your job is to destroy the enemy before he destroys you. The Ukrainians the Russians were bit by bit, chipping away, crushing them. Now they're showing a little bit of weakness. They got a few holes here and there in their swing. The Russians are going to go through it. That's what they're supposed to do. Here's the problem Trump has. We'll sanction them. And the Russians are like, well, let me see. The first 26,000 sanctions didn't work. Maybe 26,001. Maybe that's the one that'll do it. Go for it, Donald Trump. I mean, it's a threat. Well, if they don't stop, we'll sanction them. And the Russians are like, you really? And how's that worked out so far? Call Joe Biden and Blinken and ask them, hey, how's sanctions working on Russia? They ain't. It is a hollow threat. In the same way, I mean, I don't blame Trump. He's trying whatever he can. I'll sanction him. That's all he can say. Tariffs it is. The fact that he said tariffs should only reiterate the reality that we're still buying stuff from them because we got to have it. We're still buying diesel fuel from them. We're still buying uranium for our nuclear power plants because where else are we going to get it? We got to get it from them. That's our supply chain. So what are we going to do? We can't cut ourselves off from the things that we have to get from them, number one. Number two, you just said you want to deal with the Russians. You need to deal with the Russians. You want to do business with the Russians. And now, they better stop or I'll sanction them. Now, as I've said, you can ignore what Trump says. He's just blurting something out there. I suspect he knows. Kiev's got no cards, and he's got no cards. Might I add, you can extend that to the discussions that are coming on March 11th with the Ukrainians, that are coming as they negotiate, if you call it that, with the Russians. I mean, how do you negotiate when you got no cards in your hand? You're looking there. What do you got? I don't have anything above a 9. You got no queens, no jacks, no kings, no aces. All you got is jokers, right? That's all you got is jokers, and jokers don't count. So in poker. So the reality is, Trump is trying to, I guess, I put it like this. To be honest, I think Trump saying, if the Russians don't stop, I'm going to sanction them with heavy sanctions and tariffs. I think that is for the domestic audience, really. Trump knows, and the Russians know, he don't have a hand to play. So I think for the domestic audience, he wants to say something, as they say, hey, the Russians are pounding the crap out of the Ukrainians. And Trump's like, well, they better stop, or I'll sanction them and tariff them or something. Darn those Russians, they better stop. They better listen to me, because Donald Trump is not a nuanced guy. Donald Trump only really understands the dynamic of coercion. Right? Donald Trump is no Sergei Lavrov by any stretch of the imagination, right? He doesn't understand win-win, a mentality. He doesn't understand a mentality of power that says we mutually respect each other and we work out a deal where everybody wins and we walk away, and a deal is win-win or no deal. Either everybody's happy or or I'm going to walk away from the deal. I'm not going to take a deal where I get everything and you get screwed, because you'll never come back and do business with me again. I'm not going to take a deal where you come out, you look good, and I get screwed, because I can't come back because I'll go out of business. I'm only going to accept the deal where everybody walks away happy and we can continue, right? Trump don't really understand. He's a guy of coercion. He's a guy of the dynamics of power. Whoever has the most power calls all the shots. That's the way Trump sees it. The problem is, based on his paradigm, that means the Russians called all the shots, doesn't it? If my paradigm, if my way of viewing the world is that whoever has the most power is the one who can bully the other person into submission, by his own paradigm, the Russians are the ones with the power that will bully us into submission. He can only hope for mercy, because by that paradigm, what's Trump's options? Going to war with Russia. That ain't an option. Trump already said, I ain't doing that. That's World War III. That's nuclear war, will be, as he would say, obliterated. That's not an option. That's not a card that he can play. Card two, to talk to the Russians. Well, he's already doing that. And the Russians are like, yeah, we're willing to talk. But meanwhile, we're going to beat the hell out of the Ukrainians because this is a war and our aim is to win this war. What about a ceasefire? No chance of that. Look, it's the Russian way of war, right? The Russian way of war is to chip away at the foundation of their enemy until their enemy collapses, to exhaust their enemy, to fight them, to say, I can go longer than you can. I'm going to go in this war. I can take more punishment than you can. I can be more resourceful than you can. And in the long run, I'm going to win. I'll wear you out. You'll go down before I do. And meanwhile, I'm going to chip away. Okay. So the bottom line is this: the Russians got time and they've got resources and they got everything they need to continue doing what they're doing. So they're okay with what's happening. They don't need a change. In fact, the Russians do not need anything to change. They're going to win. So they're sitting pat. They don't have to bluff. Trump is bluffing. He's bluffing. Even if he acted on what he's saying, what difference would it make to the Russians? Hey, Russians, what? How many sanctions we got? 26,000. Well, you're going to have 26,003. What do you think of that? The Russians are going to be like, well, how will we know that there's 3 more? Yawn. So, but I think for his domestic audience, Trump's going to say, look, hey, they better do what I'm saying or else. And the Russians are going to yawn and we move forward. Bottom line, now I still think the Trump administration's plan has been, whether it'll change, has been March 11th, they're going to meet with the Ukrainians and they're going to say, well, we met with the Russians, we met with the Ukrainians. Ukrainians ain't going to take no deal. And, Europe, you're going to have to handle this. And I think that they may be really looking at dropping the sanctions. Here's what I say. The other day, Trump said, we may have to sanction. I said, oh, well, then they're going to drop them. Because when Trump said we're going to sanction, throw all the sanctions, more sanctions, banking sanctions. Yeah, they're going to drop the sanctions. That's what I take from Trump saying that they're going to increase the sanction. Probably means they're going to drop them. We shall see. Now, let's continue. And as I've said many, many times, everybody, oh, I didn't even put my thing across the bottom. Boy, am I an idiot. There we go. All right. Well, since I haven't put that, I'll remind you, everyone, follow me on Telegram, follow me on Rockman, follow me on Rumble. If you can afford it, to become a Patreon member, PayPal, or of course, buy me a coffee, which is always an easy one, or even Cash App. Certainly appreciate it. Hey, you see the little join button? You can join for $3, $4, $5 a month. It's up to you. So if you can afford to help the channel, I appreciate it. If not, hey, that's okay. Just share this on all your social media platforms and let's get back. Here's the other thing. So what else is happening? Let me show you a couple things. Let's look at a couple of other articles. The Washington Post, for the first time in decades, Syria is free. Now is the time for the world to pitch in. Damascus woke to a new dawn Sunday. Consider no city no longer under the grip of Bashar al-Assad's dictatorship as the streets filled with jubilant crowds. The world witnessed an event liberated by a rebel coalition that rose from years of oppression and desperation. Right? Yay! They're gone, and that's good. Everything is good. This moment is even more extraordinary when viewed against the backdrop of Assad's atrocities, which defined his 14-year campaign to cling to power. All lies, of course. All stinking lies. Well, it was in the Washington Post, so I have to tell you it's lies. Here's another one. Look at this. Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad was cruel to those he leaned on the most for support. Cruel, I tell you. He was evil. And they even got some guy to tell us how bad he was, right? Hooray, he's done. He's gone. Hooray, hooray. The evil dictator. The people of Syria are safe now, aren't they? Well, let's see what it is. Are they really? Are the people of Syria safe? Well, it has been said by many, including Tulsi Gabbard, that the people who rule Syria now are head-chopping, massacring, genocidal lunatics, that they're basically ISIS. Over 300 Alawite civilians killed in the latest killings. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, it was, if I remember correctly, that's a guy in London who's a tailor. He's probably running out of money now because that's probably was paid for by USAID. Reported that 311 Alawite civilians were killed in the coastal region by security forces and allied group since Thursday. The killings were described as executions carried out by security personnel and pro-government fighters. The overall total has risen to 524 people. Okay. It's well, now, you know, those lies are all a bunch of, you know, that's all a bunch of crap. But what are we looking at? The US, the Blinken and Biden administration, the US government, along with, of course, the Europeans, NATO, etc., hated Bashar al-Assad. Was he a brutal dictator? Hell no, he was not a brutal dictator. But they had to make up lie after lie, lies about weapons of mass, the usual stuff. The usual regime change, lies, and garbage and propaganda. He's evil, he did this, he did that, on and on and on. Till finally they were able to take down his government and install ISIS. All of us, you guys know in the chat, me, all of us were like, these guys that they're putting in charge are literally ISIS, who were aligned with the Zionists, which are effectively ISIS themselves, as you can see. So it would only be, I'll put it like this. We're seeing these ISIS guys, they've learned from the Israelis. You know, the Israelis do a real genocide. These guys are junior genociders, but they're genociders nonetheless. They're no, when it comes to genocide, they can't begin to hope to stand up to the heights of the Israelis. But they're doing their dirt and they're doing their darndest. And so now what do we have? Videos coming out all over the place from this great and wonderful government that the Turks and the US, Blinken, Biden, and all of these people that told us how bad Assad was and how wonderful it was going to be in Syria now and all the good things are going to happen. And now a sectarian wave of violence has been unleashed. Now, what part of every time ISIS gets around human beings, civilians, they start murdering and slaughtering them? What part of this was not predictable? What part of this was like, hey, we're going to put ISIS in charge of this country? And all of us are like, well, you know, they're going to slaughter civilians. Nah, ISIS slaughter civilians. It's just not how they flow, man. They're going to get in here. They put a suit, Jelani, this friggin' head chopping lunatic. They put a suit on this guy, and now he's walking around. He's meeting with people. He's shaking hands. He's running around the globe. Now he thinks he's friggin' Juan Guaido or something. Erdogan, he's, you know, hooray, I got my guy, my boys are in charge now. We're going to be this, it's going to be part of the Ottoman Empire. No. It is part of the ISIS empire. It's part of the ISIS Levant, as far as they can see. And guess what? Alawites, as far as they're concerned, and pretty much every other religion other than their very, very strange and violent and brutal a sect of Islam. Other than that, everybody else is the Satan and needs to be killed. And what are they doing? They're doing what's expected, you would expect them to do. They're going around slaughtering and murdering teenagers, men, women, children, going through houses. They're doing the like Rwanda style genocide. That's what's happening. That's what's going on. This is the bloody legacy of Israel, because Israel was in on this. And these people, think about this. Okay, this is this Islamic ISIS group. They overthrew, walked into the government. That's a whole nother story. They took charge of the country and immediately said, Israel's our friends. Really? An ISIS style group. We love Israel. They are friends. Israel takes part of their country. They're like, yeah, okay, well, they can have it. I mean, they're our buddies after a while. after all. So they're aligned with Israel. And they're like, yeah, you know, we love. So they're aligned. And for some reason, this so-called ISIS group loves the West. This is not, let's not forget, who does ISIS attack? ISIS attacked Syria. ISIS attacked Iran. ISIS attacked Russia. ISIS doesn't attack the U.S. Interestingly enough, ISIS always attacks U.S. enemies, but for some reason they can never find the time. I guess they're just too busy attacking U.S. adversaries to ever actually find the time to attack the U.S. No, my friends, the organ grinder don't attack the monkey. The monkey does not attack the organ grinder. The monkey goes around and he collects his money and he gives it back to the organ grinder, right? That's what's happening. So what do you have? The organ grinder is the same guy over and over and over. It's the U.S., it's the Zionist, it's, you know, it's the NATO countries. Now they've got these lunatics, they've let them loose, and they're doing what anyone could predict that they'll do. They're slaughtering people. Now what is going to happen is people are going to arm themselves to fight back. Some of them will be mowed down, and Syria will just turn into a battlefield, a sectarian battlefield of slaughter. Once again, the legacy of the Biden administration, this friggin' guy's Genghis Khan. Think about it. This friggin' guy is nasty. Look at the legacy of Joe Biden. 4 years in, how many Lebanese died from bombings? How many Syrians have died from bombings and now slaughters, merciless slaughters because Biden and Blinken and his crew wanted to overthrow Syria? How many Palestinians are died? Hundreds of thousands, literally. How many? Their war in Ukraine to take out Russia. The Ukrainians have lost over 1 million men and probably another 2 or 3 million horrifically wounded. The Russians have lost at least 100, maybe 100, maybe 200,000. I don't know what the number is, but they've lost a bunch of men, a lot of men and women, of course. Terrorist attacks all over the place. I mean, how many mercenaries have died and on and on. So Ukraine has been a destabilized killing field. You know what they did? Here's what the Biden administration did. The Middle East to them was an area of conflict. We're going to bomb countries, overthrow countries, kill people, assassinations, drone murders, you name it. There's a lot of money to be made in the Middle East. There's a lot of war to be had so that the military industrial complex can get rich. And of course, there's a lot of oil there to be stolen and a lot of money to be pilfered and laundered. Let's make it happen. The Middle East was great. Here's what they're doing. There ain't enough there anymore. They moved it to Europe. Now Europe is a destabilized zone. Europe is a conflict zone. That's all they did. They turned Europe into the same kind of conflict zone as the Middle East. That was the plan. And you know what they do with a conflict zone? They make a fortune. That's what they're doing. They're making a fortune. Now, I guess they want to get out of that and go to Asia and turn Asia into a conflict zone so they can make a fortune in Asia. They got proxies there. They got the Philippines. They got South Korea. They got Japan. Maybe they can use these proxies. Maybe they can get them bombed and missiled to hell and turn Asia into a proxy zone. I mean, the United States is worldwide an arsonist, going around the world just setting everything on fire. And might I add, what's it all about? It's because the United States empire is collapsing. It's declining, right? And this is to try to save the empire. But the irony is that everything they do to try to save the empire only increases the rate of decline. It makes people hate us more. It's going to hurt our economy in the long run. It makes people okay, Trump, we want to save the dollar, save the dollar. We got to save the dollar. All of these sanctions are stupid. They're destroying the dollar. Fair enough. And what is his first move when Russia says we're pounding Ukraine? Screw that. We'll sanction you. It was a reactionary sanction, or it was the threat to sanction. Why? You know why? Tell you why Trump threatened to sanction Russia. Because he didn't know what else to do. It's simple. He couldn't think of another card to play. What card do we have to play against Russia? Could he threaten to bomb them? Nope, that wouldn't work. We'd get the crap knocked out of us or nuked. So he couldn't really threaten military aggression against Russia. right? What could he threaten against Russia? The only thing he could threaten would be sanctions and tariffs. That's the only card he has to play. And that card ain't going to do nothing. But that's all he got. You know what I mean? It's like, let's throw this at him, but it's not going to hurt him. But we don't have anything else to throw at him. Yeah, but it ain't going to hurt him. You know, it's like, we throw bombs. Okay, didn't work. Mortars, didn't work. Grenades, we threw those grenades at him, didn't work. Do we have anything else? Well, we've got a rock. Well, damn it, let's throw the rocks at him. But the rocks ain't going to work. If bombs and grenades and mortars didn't work, what makes you think a rock's going to work? No, I'm not throwing the rock at my enemy because it's going to work. I'm throwing it at him because I don't have nothing else to throw. I'm throwing because I don't have any weapons left, and all I got left is a rock, and I'll throw that. And I know it ain't going to do no good. That's Trump. We got to stop the Russians. They're pummeling the Ukrainians. Okay, what do? Sanctions. But we've done sanctions and they didn't work. Well, we don't have anything else. All righty, sanctions it is. And now he's not even going to really use sanctions. He's only using, this is what's so bad. That's so bad. This is what's so bad. Imagine if somebody said, all right, we got anything else to throw the enemy? No. Do we have any? Can we shoot at them? Nah, we're out of bullets. Can we throw mortars? We're out of mortars. Can we bomb them? We're out of bombs. All right. Can we throw a rock at them? We are out of rocks. I tell you what I'll do. I'll draw a picture of a rock, and we'll throw that picture of a rock at them. We'll throw a symbolic picture of a rock at them. That's what Trump is doing. Do we really have any sanctions left that we can sanction them? No. Okay, we'll symbolically sanction them then. Okay, what does that mean? That means we'll threaten to sanction them, and then we'll take out a piece of paper and we'll write Russia is sanctioned on that piece of paper, and we'll send it to the Russians. And the Russians will be like, yeah, okay, well, tell us something we didn't know. What are these new sanctions? Well, we don't really have any. But doggone it, you've been notified with that piece of paper. It's like an IOU from a homeless guy. Hey, can I borrow $1,000? Why, homeless guy? Because I don't have any money. Well, you said borrow. You going to pay me back? I'll give you an IOU. He ain't paying you back. If he had $1,000 to pay you back, he wouldn't be laying in the street homeless with a bottle of hooch in his hand. If Trump really could sanction him, he wouldn't have to threaten to sanction him. He'd just sanction him. He'd say, doggone it, the Russians won't stop. Institute sanction X. And they'd institute sanction X. And he'd say, now, Russians, how about that? We've instituted sanction X. What are you going to do now? And the Russians would have to look at sanction X and figure out whether or not it hurt them. But he doesn't have sanction X. All he can do is draw a picture of sanctions and send it over to the Russians and hope that the symbolic sanctions will somehow frighten or hurt them. I have a funny feeling that sanction 26,001, that ain't going to be the one. It's not going to be the straw that broke the camel's back. I have a feeling Trump knows that. And so what Trump is really saying in a paradoxical manner, when he says they're pounding Ukraine, and everybody's like, yeah, tell me something. The Ukrainians are like, tell us something we don't know. We're getting pounded. But what Trump's saying is this. I'll end it with this. I got no more cards to play. The only thing I can do is draw a picture of a rock and throw that at him. Ball it up on a piece of paper. Take out a piece of paper, draw a picture of a rock, crumble it up, and throw it at your enemy. I don't even have a rock. All he can say is, do you have sanctions to sanction him? I'll just use the word sanctions to threaten to sanction him. Anything else? Write down the word sanction and make it into a paper airplane and throw it. Fax it to the Russians. Send them an email that says, you're sanctioned, darn it. You better come around right now, or I'm going to send you another email. And that email's going to say you're sanctioned too. Trump knows he has no cards to play. Nothing. It's over. So I guess with no cards to play, his only options are to accept that he has no cards to play and to come up with a strategy thereof, which would mean March 11th, meet with the Ukrainians. And don't tell them you have no cards to play. Tell them they have no cards to play. Because if you think about it, you're saying you have no cards to play by telling them, sit them down. Hey, welcome to Riyadh, Ukrainians. Hey, how's it going, guys? Well, maybe not so good. I think we need to have a talk. Okay, what is it? I know, we all know you got no cards to play. And there's the Russians. I don't know if you've been paying attention to last week, but you've been getting pummeled. And they probably ain't going to stop. So here's where we are. In order to give the Russians a deal, you have to give them every damn thing they want. Otherwise, they're just going to crush you, run over you. I don't know if you noticed about Keir Starmer and Macron. Those guys are full of crap. They got nothing. They got nothing. If we got nothing, They got nothing. So here's the deal. Sign this. We'll give it to the Russians and we'll end this war. And the Ukrainians will look at the paper and they'll say, but there's nothing on it. Correct. You're going to sign this blank piece of paper. We're going to give it to the Russians and we're going to ask them to fill in the terms. The only two words on the top of this paper are unconditional surrender. That pretty much is the only card you can play right now. Unconditional surrender. Let's go with that. Ukrainians, no doubt, will say, no, we'll stand up and fight the Russians. And the Trump's people will say, what do you mean we? We ain't going to fight the Russians. If you want to fight the Russians, best of luck to you. Either you sign this paper, we give it to the Russians and they'll fill it out, and then you're going to have to bite the bullet, or we're going to probably drop the sanctions on the Russians and start making a deal so we can eat, man. We got to eat. We're trying to make some money here, and you're getting in the way of it. That's what I see happening. Maybe I'm wrong. We shall see March 11th, but that's where we are. Let me start. As I said, don't forget, everybody, we have we got a join button. So if you can join, it's $3, $4, $5 a month. That's up to you. But if you can afford to join the channel, that's highly appreciated. Numero uno. Number two, of course, if you can afford to, buy me a coffee is always easy. Buy Garland a coffee. How much? 5 beans. How many? However the hell many. 1. Maybe whatever you can do. 100. And of course, you can become just like Patreon and buy me a coffee. Now you can become a monthly subscriber and stuff like that. So that's up to you. But if you can't, just share this on all your social media platforms. Oh, Basil Peterson says, I do not like green eggs and ham. Oh, he knows yet what I've been saying, the green eggs and ham theory, where they come to Trump and ask him over and over, will you send troops to Ukraine? I will not send troops to Ukraine. Will you send them in a plane? I will not send them in a plane. I will not send them in a plane. I will not send them, in a whatever. I will not send troops to Ukraine. I will not send them Keir Starmer and Macron. Oh, okay. They come back the next day. Will you send them in a bus? Yes, please send them. Yes, you must. I will not send them in a bus. No, I mustn't, and I won't. Leave me alone. All right, thanks, Basil. That's a good one. Good old green eggs and ham. And Sam, I am. I guess that is it. Somebody says Europe will play unconditional stupidity. Yeah, that's pretty much what Europe's up to. Unconditional stupidity. I'm going to now look. Let's look on Rockfin and see if we got any, what do they call a rumble? We got no rumble rants, so that's out. And we're going to look on Rockfin and nope, live chat, nobody, no tips. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see what we got here. We got saw you on Savvy Sab's podcast. Appreciate you. Marvin Vargas. Thanks a lot, Marvin. Certainly, Marvin. Oh, Savvy's great, isn't she? Loves Savvy Sabs. She's one of my friends. Where's Sparky? I don't know. It's weird. Somebody says, happy Saturday to you. Thanks, Lapsy G. What else we got here? We'll just say hi to a couple people since it's Saturday. We'll just look. Zisk will not be able to digest that. The Banderites will string him up. Yeah, I think you're right. Here's the thing about it. Okay, here's the issue. For it's really coming on ours. I gotta make sure it's visible. Look, Zelensky played the game, and now it's catching up with him. He played the game for so long. He played with the Banderites, and now, what's Zelensky going to do? If he sticks around long enough in Kiev, he gets snuffed out. His only move is to leave. I think cocaine probably has addled his brain, so he's not a clear thinker by any stretch of the imagination. I also think that Jody Brewer was right about Zelensky, that he is an MI6 creation. I really believe it, because think about it. At first, he was protected by MI6, and then now he's protected by French intelligence, right? But not US. He's an MI6 creation. MI6 created this guy. What did he do? Who was the guy who went over to scuttle the deal the Istanbul Agreement, Bojo. What do they call him? Yes, he's the next Churchill. They don't say he's the next FDR. They say he's the next Churchill, right? Everything about him stinks of MI6. What did he do when Trump and Biden slapped him around and threw him out of the Oval Office? Where'd he go? Straight to London, straight to his handlers. He's an MI6 creation. That's what he is. And the problem he has is he bet on the wrong horse. He went with MI6 and now he goes back to MI6 and they say, don't you worry, we'll handle it. They can't handle it. Trump told the truth about anything. If he never told the truth before, he's got a bad hand. He's got no cards to play. Scott made a pretty good document on Zelensky. Let's see. Garland, question. Scott wants a story for connection with Russian people. I'm Dutch. I found a Russian soldier back, died 1943, 210. No one could find in the files for 80 years. I'm not sure what that means. It's a little confusing, but thanks for. All right. During Trump's first presidency, he hurt soybean and lobster farmers, also hurt American wineries, especially smaller ones. Yeah, those, the tariffs I don't think are really going to work. In the short term, they may do a little something, but in the long term, I think they're going to hurt. They're going to put them in a bad position. If you have questions about the tariffs, Garland, my super chat, top $10. I'll look and see. Maybe I missed it. Let's start from the top. I'm going to the top. Okay, I must have missed some. Okay, let's go down. We're going to see. I might have missed some super chats, and I don't want to miss any super chats. Okay, here we go. Ah, ha, 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 ha. There we go. Trump's purposefully offering Ukraine a deal that's 10 times worse than Russia is. He pulled the rug and he's offering the Ukrainians no security. USA gets a half of Ukraine GDP in perpetuity. He wants them to refuse. He wants out. Maybe right. I think he wants a deal, but I think he knows what he's dealing with by now. I think, let's face it, if we can figure out, Trump's got smart people around him. Tulsi Gabbard's around him. I think he's got some people around him. They're straightforward. Dude, you're dealing with a bunch of friggin' lughead Nazis. These people are stupid. They're not smart. And that's a good. So you're right. I'm thinking. I'm with you. I think he's gonna take a hike. There's Basil. Anyone else? Oh, we got some more super chats. Let's go. Oh, J.A. Scott 6. Thank you very much. Look at this. We got a new member, Tommy T. Thanks a lot, Tommy T. Anything else? Marvin, Tommy T, J.H. Scott 6. Thanks a lot, everybody. And by the way, don't forget, you guys, you can become a member. It's not hard to become a member. All you got to do is go up there and join the, YouTube. And when you look on there, it's like $3.99, $4.99, $7.99. It all depends on what you can afford. So it's pretty cheap. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. I think I'm going to make a run for the hills. Here it is. Oh my God, I've been on for 53 minutes, almost an hour. Hey, I'm really having fun hanging out with Jamal Thomas. He and I will probably start doing some more shows together. Mainly, it's not for you. It's because we have a blast. Let me see what we got here. Why just not ask for 10 or 20% for 50 years? Why half until the end of time? I think now this is what's been said. Let me throw this out before I go about the Trump thing. One of the things that I see all over the net that I've heard from a lot of reliable places, the rumor is, okay, in case you haven't heard this, that when the Ukrainians signed a 100-year deal with the Brits, that included the Brits being able to get their mitts on Ukrainian stuff, their ports and to run their ports and, all the stuff that Trump's saying he wants, right? This is the rumor, the rumor mill. Okay. And that while Trump knows, the Trump people understand that Ukraine doesn't have a lot to offer and that they may not even be around, that this is a way of undermining the Brits, the Brits, the UK, that knowing that the Ukrainians have already promised this stuff to the UK. Trump trying to get them to sign it is a way of undermining the relationship between the Ukrainians and the UK. The UK, like, oh, yes, well, we'll just steal all their stuff when this war is over. It's a way of saying, oh, no, you won't. No, you won't. So you screwed me once. You tried to do me in here. And so you're going to have to pay. And I think it's a way that there is a Cold War now. We have a Cold War. And I think the Cold War is between the US and France and Germany and Britain. I think that's the Cold War now. It's an internal Cold War of NATO. And I think what Trump is doing and his team is doing, they're reading how the Brits are trying to play their hand and they're thwarting it. And I think the whole thing makes no sense. Think about it. Most of their precious metals they don't even have. It's going to be a rump, broken up, impoverished, Nazi-infested country. Who the hell wants it? It's not going to have any value. So you're not really going to get much out of it. It's going to be something that you want off your ledger books, that's for sure, as quick as possible. Even Trump is saying, think about it, Trump's saying, you're going to have to rebuild them. We ain't putting another stinking penny in this project. So he knows there's nothing coming out of that. If he thought he could make some money, the U.S. would be in rebuild. But the U.S. knows anything that's worth having, the Russians have already took. And anything else that's worth having, the Russians are going to continue to take until there ain't nothing left. So I think Trump is just screwing with the Brits. He's keeping pressure on Kiev with these so-called deals. And I think he knows they aren't real. Garland, give my story to Scott. He knows what I mean and its value. Ready? Trump didn't forget the European leaders calling him Hitler. Oh, absolutely not. The British leadership has no morals. Would be interesting if Trump put them on their rightful place. That's kind of one of the things that's going on. You don't ask for the impossible if you want a deal. He doesn't want a deal. Agreed. Thanks, though. Great episode. Exactly. Trump just wants the hell out. That's what he wants. I think he's come. Look, it's obvious. He's not dealing with rational people. Look at the Europeans. They're friggin' lunatics. Look at the Ukrainians. They're goose stepping around with Hitler tattoos. You're not making a deal with those kind of people. And I think Trump knows it. Oh, in Ukraine, the West lost $500 billion in money and weapons and lost the war. It's better to stop more loss and leave Ukraine to its fate. Man, that's what I'm with you, bro. UK created Russiagate. Trump knows that too. He knows a couple of things. He knows that these people hate him. They're their enemy. They're his enemies, and they're trying to destroy him. I think he also knows that probably it's quite possible that an assassination attempt against him possibly could have been MI6 involved or the Brits involved. So I think Trump's position is these people ain't my friends. I'll treat them like enemies. If they want to act like enemies, I'll treat them like enemies. What we got? Protests in Paris against Macron and boots on the ground. Well, but here's the thing. One thing is obvious. Macron and Starmer don't care about the protests. They don't care about their people. Let me add this. You got to think about this too. The whole idea of boots on the ground, right? How are you going to drag a country into war when you got like a 10% approval rating? Can you imagine Starmer saying, all righty, we're going to rally everybody to war. Everybody, you're going to get your papers for your draft papers. And when you get drafted, you're going to go do your basic training, and then we're going to send you to die on the Russian front. And the bad news is we don't really have guns or anything like for you. We don't have armored personnel carriers. We're a little short on food. So we're going to sharpen up some broomsticks. That's the best they can do. We're going to sharpen up some mop heads, and we want you to challenge we don't even have bayonets, but we're going to have sharp sticks. And we want you to point them at the Russians and just run right into the Russians in human waves with sharp sticks. I mean, that's about the best the British could do right now. And for some reason, I have a funny feeling that if Keir Starmer says, okay, we're going to war, let's bring everybody in and start drafting, that the youth of Britain wouldn't go along. All right, everybody report to your draft headquarters. And the youth of Britain would be like, you got to be shitting me. We ain't doing that, dude. We're trying to struggle to survive. You screwed things up and bad enough. Macron have? Less than 15% approval rating? You're not going to be able to motivate the citizens of your country to switch to a war footing when you got a 15% or less approval rating. Old BlackRock Mertz. If he says to the Germans, we're going to war with Russia, the German people are going to say, and with what? He's going to say, well, we may not have anything to fight with. Fair enough. But we got our hands. Doggone it. And we're German. And we got schnitzel. And I don't know how that fits in with war, but we got our hands. And let's take our hands and we'll face up against these hypersonic missiles and T-72 tanks and things like that, Terminator tanks and all the things, the Russian artillery with our bare hands. Come on, Russians, put up your dukes. We'll fight you with our bare hands. That's about the best they can do right now. I don't think it's going to work. Kier going in first for us to see example. Yeah, there we go. They'll kidnap them like Ukraine does. No one will do anything. Exactly. French economy, two biggest industries, perfume and wine. Yeah, I got a feeling. Let's see what else we got. I'm hungry. Bring on the schnitzel. There we go. Speaking of which, what do we got this? Protesters in Paris were shouting, we're not going to fight and die for Ukraine. There you go. I'm telling you. So at any rate, thanks a lot, everybody. I certainly appreciate it. Wow, 907 people. Things are rolling. Do me a favor. Share this on all your social media platforms. If you can afford it, certainly appreciate it. If you give a few dollars to a few beans to keep the show going. If you can't, just share it on your social media platforms and enjoy. Please, if you can be a member, click that little join button. Follow me on Rumble. Follow me on Rockfin. I'm out.